whoa. Just whoa. Hey, what's up, you guys? FilmFan0599 here again, and today we're going to review Season 3 of Game of Thrones. So before we get into my review of Season 3 of Game of Thrones, you know, spoilers are going to be ahead. There's spoilers in this review. I go in depth with my TV show reviews, so there's going to be spoilers. So if you haven't seen Season 3, don't watch this review. But if you have seen Season 3, or if you just don't care about spoilers, then you can continue on watching and have fun with this review. So, let's get into it. Season 3 of Game of Thrones. So, what Season 3 of Game of Thrones is basically about, it's about now Tyrell Lannister. He is now the Hand of the King, and the war between, you know, with Robb and the Lannisters and all that, that's still going on. Jaime is still missing, and, you know, Jon is trying to prove himself as a wildling. You know, Tyrion, he's still being Mr. Tyrion. You know, lots of things are going on in this season. So, what did I think of Season 3 of Game of Thrones? Whew, that was incredible. I thought Seasons 1 and 2 were fantastic. This makes those two seasons pale in comparison. Season 3 of Game of Thrones is by far the best season so far. I don't see Season 4, 5, or 6 beating this. This was too great. This seriously was. This was too fantastic. I loved Season 3 of Game of Thrones. It was fantastic. So yeah, let's get right into my positives with the season. My positives are first being, you know, the acting. The acting is still great in this show. I still love the acting. All the characters are really great, to be honest. You know, of course, with the Lannisters, you got Lena Headey as, you know, Cersei. She's still a jerk, and she's still a great job, you know. She's just a jerk, you know, to being Cersei, you know, regular old Cersei. I mean, she's talking with, Marjorie, and she's like, you know, Marjorie's like, we're gonna be sisters soon, and Cersei's like, if you call us sisters again, I'll have you strangled in your sleep. Like, what? And when Finn Jones tries to talk to her, he's like, my father once told, and she's like, I don't care what your father once told you. I'm like, do you have to be that much of a jerk? And she is. She really is. But Lena Headey, she does a really great job, you know, playing this character and everything. So yeah, Lena Headey was great. You know, you got your boy Nikolai Coster-Waldau as, Jaime. He was great. I thought this was the best season, honestly, I've seen Jaime so far. Because, you know, in the previous 2 seasons, and in the beginning of Season 3, you know, Jaime's still the same old jerk Jaime. You know, but when a certain something happens, which I'll get into when I talk about my moments, he starts to change a little bit. He starts to realize, you know, I was a jerk. You know, I can kind of be a better person, sort of. You know what I mean? And it was great seeing that character change in this season. And it made me really care for Jaime more as a character. And really, Nikolai Coster-Waldau's performance really proved that to me. And he did a really good job in this season. So yeah, I really enjoyed him. Of course, your boy Peter Dinklage as Tyrion Lannister. I loved him. He was so great in this season. You know, I very much enjoyed, you know, Peter Dinklage in, as Tyrion in this season. He was great. You know, John Gleeson as, Joffrey, still the biggest jerk in the universe. And he was great. Seriously, John Gleeson, I gotta give this guy, like, major credit for making me despise this character. You know, that's just how good his acting ability is that he makes me literally want this character to burn into flames. And, you know, John Gleeson does a really great job as Joffrey. You know, Joffrey is still the jerk Joffrey, the biggest jerk in the universe, like I said. But the one to me that gives the best performance in this entire season is Charles Dance as Tyrell Lannister. Like, seriously, Charles Dance was fantastic in this season. Like, you know, he was in Seasons 1 and 2, but really in Season 3, he just gives such a great performance. Like, really, Charles Dance was fantastic in this season, and I thought he gave the best performance out of anybody in this season. Like, he was just so like, magnificent to watch on screen. You know, Tyrell Lannister, you know, he's a jerk, just like most of the other Lannisters, but he was just so great. Like, I loved Charles Dance as Tyrell Lannister. He did such a fantastic job in this season. And then, of course, you got the Starks. You got, of course, Richard Madden as Robb Stark. He was still great. Still enjoyed him in the season. Michelle Farrell, I believe. No, not Farrell. Farrellyn. That's what her name is. As Catelyn Stark, of course. She was still great. I still enjoyed her. You know, Maisie Williams as Arya Stark. Still great. Still loved her. Really loved her in this season. She did a really great job, in this season, and definitely was invested in her storyline a lot during this season. And of course, you know, Sophie Turner as Sansa, she was still really good. You know, you got, of course, you know, everybody in Daenerys' storyline. Of course, Emilia Clarke as Daenerys Targaryen. This is the best I've seen this character in the entire show so far. Like, seriously, everyone that tells me, you know, Khaleesi is just so awesome, you know, Daenerys is so cool, I finally witnessed that, and that was in this season, because she just proves that no one is to mess with her, and she was great. And I thought Emilia Clarke did a fantastic job in this season. I really thought, Daenerys, Khaleesi, with the thousands of names she has, she was great, and I really enjoyed her. Of course, Ian Glenn, he was still great too. I very much enjoyed him as well. And my boy Ed Sheeran. No, not Ed Sheeran. Ed Skrein. Sorry. From Deadpool. You know, the guy who played Ajax in Deadpool. I had no clue he was in this show. So when I saw him at first, I was like, Ajax has hair? I'm not joking, that's the first immediate thought I had. When he walked on screen, I was like, Ajax has hair? So yeah, but he was really good. When he gets introduced in episode 8, I actually very much enjoyed his character in the season. I actually really liked him, so he was really cool as well. So yeah, the acting is really good in this season. I thought everyone did a really good job. The action sequences, as usual, are awesome. You know, I love the action sequences in this show. They had some really cool sword battles in this season, which I really liked. There were some really very nice, well-shot sword fights in this season. Like, there's one between the Hound and this guy who God can bring him back to life and stuff. And that was a really great fight scene, and I very much enjoyed that scene a lot. And so yeah, there was a lot of scenes like that had some really great action scenes, and I really liked them. They were very well filmed. You can see what's going on, and it's great. So yeah, I love the action scenes with the season. You know, I still love how, they expand upon this world of Westeros, and it's just great. I really love how they expand upon this world. We're getting to introduce to new cities, just like with last season. We get to be introduced to new cities and stuff, and which is great, and it definitely expands upon this world of Westeros, and I absolutely love that. I love all the storylines. Like, literally, all the storylines in this season were great, and I forgot to mention this, but I love Kit Harington as Jon Snow in this season. He was great. Rose Leslie as Ygritte, she was great too, and really added something. To me, she really added something to Jon's storyline. Just like last season, it really adds something to Jon's storyline, and it's just great. And, I really enjoyed watching those two on screen. So yeah, the storylines were really great in this season. I did enjoy every single one of them. Like, there was no storyline that I thought was boring. Like, I was really invested in every single storyline in this season. The writing is fantastic too. I absolutely love the writing with the season. The season had some fantastic writing. The directing is still beautiful with this show. I absolutely love the directing with Game of Thrones. Just this show has some magnificent directing behind it. I absolutely love the directing with Game of Thrones. Very well shot, gorgeous cinematography. I absolutely love the directing with Game of Thrones Season 3. Alrighty, so now it's time to get into the 6 defining moments of the season. Thing I've been doing with these TV show reviews as of late, so here we go. First, and I'm just going to combine this one all into one moment, and that is all the Theon torture sequences. Those were brutal to watch, and those were exactly what they were trying to do. They were trying to make you squirm, make you feel uncomfortable, and they did a great job, because that's exactly how you were supposed to feel during these torture Theon, man, seriously, he goes through a lot. He gets his dingling cut off. Seriously, he does. And it's just like, what? It's like, oh my goodness. And those torture sequences were really hard to watch. And you got this character named Ramsay who is just sadistic. Like, seriously, he is sadistic. Like, he enjoys this. Like, seriously, he has a gigantic smile on his face when he's doing this. He's a sadistic man. And just those scenes were really tough to watch, especially when, you know, like I said, when they have to cut off his, you know, his thingamajig off of him. And it was really, really brutal to watch. So, yeah, all the torture sequences were really brutal with Theon and everything. And even though I did, like I hated his character in Season 2. I despised what he did. But I was just like, no, man, you have to go through this. Like, seriously, this was brutal. This seriously was. So, yeah. Next moment I want to talk about. Remember how I said a certain something happened to Jaime in this season? Yeah, this is what happened. So, Jaime, you know, he's being taken to get some food. Nope, that's not what happens. He gets put down on his hands and knees. You know, like on his knees, not his hands and knees, just his knees. And his hands are like laid down. I was like, are they gonna chop one of his hands off? And that's exactly what happens. His hand gets chopped clean off. Like, clean off. One sweep. Cha-cha. Like, it's seriously, I was like, what? And it is just gushing blood. I was like, oh my goodness. It was just, it was, whoa. Like, seriously, it was just brutal to watch. He got his hand cut clean off. Lickety split clean. Like, there was no, like, taking another try at it. It was lickety split clean. Like, seriously, holy moly. So, yeah, that scene was just like, whoa. So, yeah, that's the other moment. Now, the next moment I want to talk about, it involves Daenerys, actually. They're at this place, and, you know, she kind of wants the kingdom to herself and everything, and there's this army there. And, you know, one of the guys wants a dragon. So Daenerys is like, you know what, you can have one of the dragons. And all the guys are like, no, what are you doing? But I figured, I was like, she's got something up her sleeve. I know she's going to do something. And that's exactly what happens. She takes the army for her own and lets the dragon burn the dude to death. And that was just a great scene because it really showed, you know, Daenerys is not to be messed with. And that was the first moment to me where it was like, you know, don't mess with Daenerys. You know, I know last season, you know, her dragons did kill a person, but that really, it was like, I was getting there. Now I fully believe not to mess with Daenerys after that scene. So, yeah, I definitely think that was a great moment for her, and it's honestly the best moment she's had in this entire series so far. Next being, you know, Jaime, like I said, Jaime, he's been changing, and this is where I really felt he fully changed. And it's when he wants to go back to the woman that, you know, had to take him around and stuff, because she is being locked up with them while he's being brought back to King's Landing. He's like, I'm going back for her, and that's what he exactly does. But what happens is she's fighting a bear with a wooden sword, and it is intense to watch. Like, she's already got the bear already scratched her neck up, like, bad, like, really bad, and it was just an intense scene to watch, because I got really scared, because it was like a gigantic bear going after the both of them. And Jaime has one arm, so one hand. He has one hand, so he can't barely do anything. So yeah, it was a really intense scene to watch, and it just really showed that Jaime had changed, and, you know, Jaime's trying to be a better person. Next moment I want to talk about is the wedding between Sansa and Tyrion. Don't worry, we'll get into that other wedding. We will get to that. But first I want to talk about this one, because this scene was just awkward. Like, it was really awkward, because what Tyrell does is he's forcing Tyrion to marry Sansa. And, you know, like, and it's just the whole wedding is just awkward. And then the ceremony afterwards is even more awkward, because Tyrion just gets drunk off his butt. Like, seriously, that's what he does. He just gets drunk to no end. And it is just awkward to watch. And you feel so bad for Tyrion, because he's being forced to do something that he doesn't want to do. Because, you know, his family hates his guts. So you're just like, man, I feel bad for Tyrion. And for Sansa, too. She doesn't want this either. You know what I mean? She doesn't want this as much as Tyrion doesn't want this. So yeah, just that whole wedding sequence was very awkward to watch. Well, that was what it was supposed to do, but you know what I mean? It was very awkward to watch, and you were just like, man, these two characters are I feel bad that these characters are forced to do this. So yeah. Now the last moment I want to talk about, yeah, this is probably what you guys have been waiting for me to talk about. Okay, so episode 9. Now, I've heard about this sequence a lot. Whenever someone brings up this show, this is the sequence they always bring up. The Red Wedding sequence. Now, I was like, oh, you know, because I've heard a lot about this sequence, and I asked my friend Faith, who, you know, the person that made me watch the show, I was like, wait, doesn't the Red Wedding happen this season? She was like, yes. You're not going to be prepared for it. I was like, oh god. So I was really nervous going into this scene, and also I was like, you know, how brutal can it be? You know what I mean? How brutal can this scene be? Oh my goodness. When I tell you, I felt like a broken man after watching this sequence. I felt like a broken man. Like, seriously, I was in awe for 5 minutes. I couldn't speak. It was just that brutal. Okay, so what happened? What happened in this sequence? Okay, so, you know, Rob's uncle has to marry one of this dude's daughters because he was supposed to, and he didn't. He went off and married another woman. So they're at the wedding and everything, and the bride and, you know, the groom, they get out. They're about to, you know, do adult things. But, however, you smell something's fishy's going on. You know something's going on that's really, really fishy, but you can't put your finger on it just yet. You just have this weird feeling that something's about to go down. But when Catelyn realizes that, like, there's armor on one of the dudes, she's like, Robb, run! And then one of the dudes comes up to Robb's wife, who's pregnant, by the way, I forgot to mention that, starts gut stabbing her, like, gut stabbing her, and it is horrifying. Like, she's gushing blood, and it's just horrifying to watch. Robb gets shot with a couple of arrows. It's just like, and everyone dies. Like, seriously, it is a bloodbath. Like, last season with the war sequence, that was bloodshed, but that was awesome bloodshed. That was cool. This, no. This was disturbing as hell. It seriously was. This was disturbing as hell. I could not believe what I was watching. Seriously, I was so I was shaking. Like, my hand was like this. The entire sequence. I couldn't believe what I was watching. It was just that mind-boggling to me. Oh my goodness, everyone dies. It is a bloodbath. Like, everyone's either getting gut stabbed, shot with arrows, getting, you know, their neck sliced. Like, it was brutal. I was like, whoa. You know, this show, I know this show is brutal, okay? You know, I'm 3 seasons into this show. I know it's a brutal show. I don't see any sequence in this show beating that sequence for, like, most disturbed sequence ever. Like, this has to be the most disturbed sequence I've ever seen on television. This was disturbing. And by the way, this was the first time I've ever watched this scene. I've never seen it. You know, I've just heard about it. I've never had seen the scene. So this was my first time watching it. I can't imagine. If it's bad just me watching it now, 4 years later, I can't imagine how watching it live on television when it did happen the first time. Like, seriously, this was brutal. And then Catelyn Stark has one of the dude's wife, you know, has a knife to her neck. And he's like, you know what? I will kill her if you don't let us go. We'll forget about this. And Robb's just like, we lost. What do we have to fight for? My wife's dead. We've lost. That's what he's based. That's just by that facial expression. You can just tell he's like, we lost. We have nothing. And then the dude comes up to him, he's like, the Lannisters send their regards, stabs Robb, Robb's dead. And, you know, Catelyn, she cuts the throat of the dude's wife, and then Catelyn gets her neck sliced open, and now she's dead too. I was like, what? And then the end credits came along. I was just like, seriously, that broke me. Like, that was just brutal to watch. And I don't see any other sequence in television disturbing me more than that sequence, because, yeah, that was disturbing. You will lose all innocence after watching that sequence. So, yeah, that was brutal. But, overall, Season 3 of Game of Thrones, I think it was an absolutely fantastic season. I think, honestly, not just for that sequence, there was a lot of great things about this season. And honestly, I do think it was the best season so far I have seen of the show. I really don't see Seasons 4, 5, or 6 beating this season, because it was just so fantastic. It had the most intriguing storylines. The characters were at their best in this season. Just everything was so great about this season. So it's time for my official grade on Season 3 of Game of Thrones. My official grade on Season 3 of Game of Thrones is, of course, an A+. This is an absolutely fantastic season. There's nothing I did not like about this season. This season is a masterpiece. I absolutely loved Season 3, and it definitely deserves an A+. So, what did you guys think of Season 3 of Game of Thrones? Leave in the comment section below. I'm FilmFan0599, and we will see you all later. Peace.